Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. It's time for Twit's annual audience survey, and we want to hear from you. Please visit twit.tv/survey and let us know what you think. It only takes a few minutes, and your anonymous feedback will help us make Twit even better. We thank you so much for your continued support. twit.tv/survey.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For a free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/knowhow. That's LYNDA.com/knowhow. And by SmartThings. SmartThings lets you monitor, control, and automate your home from wherever you are using your smartphone. Right now, SmartThings is offering Know-How listeners 10% off any home security or solutions kit, and you get free shipping in the United States when you go to smartthings.com/twit and use the offer code TWIT at checkout. On this episode of Know-How, Raspberry Pi Media Center, tuning your quadcopter, and your questions are answers. Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And today, Know-How is filmed before a live studio audience. That's right, folks.
Whoa, look at all of them.
Yeah, enthusiastic.
Wow.
Now, this is the most excitement we've had out of Know-How in a long, long time.
I think we need to step up our game then today.
Well, you know, our game is going to go 30 to 40, maybe 50, maybe an hour and a half long. So, yeah, we've got game.
Give or take, give or take. As long as Alex doesn't shut us down. Oh,
man, it's
got the shot of the
just
clock.
Always.
We're on DEFCON 1 now.
Yeah. Well, we better jump into it because our audience members are starting to fade. Now, Brian, I wanted to talk a little bit about something from way back when, you know, wind the technology clock. Now, I think, before you were born.
Yeah, that feels like a long time now.
We used to communicate without fiber optics.
What?
I know, right?
How would you communicate otherwise?
This is just no. How would you know?
No.
Well, okay, look, a long while back, people used to think that the only way that you could communicate from, say, one coast of the United States to the other is either via a really long copper cable,
right,
which there wasn't a whole lot of and they weren't great quality, or you bounced things off of satellites.
Okay.
Right? And that was expensive and it caused a delay.
How long ago are we thinking?
Oh, not that long ago, actually.
50, 60 years
ago?
ago?
Go back 60 years. Go back 60 years. I mean, the technology was in its nascency, but they needed a better way to get data. Voice, television, simple packets of data from one part of the country to the next, and they didn't really have a whole lot of infrastructure in the ground. Now, there's a book that just came out that talked about the long line, and this is something that I remember from a kid, so it's great to see it again. And it's a network of microwave towers that AT&T built out way back when, back in the 50s, to essentially wire the country together.
Okay, so it was like the first kind of cell network, or?
Yeah, kind of. It used microwaves. Now, and actually, Alex, I think you've got some pictures here from this story. He turned it into a coffee book table. You'll probably see these. These are still around today. If you go to the Mojave Desert, if you go down to Los Angeles, if you go to Santa Barbara, now they're all over the country. The initial network was created back in, I believe, 1951. It cost about $40 million. That was 63 years ago. That's a lot of money today.
Wow.
And it consisted of 107 microwave towers. That's just the first one. After that, hundreds of towers were built across the country. Now, the idea was you could go about 30 to 40 miles using microwave technology. And that microwave technology was actually kind of impressive for its time. It was two 12 to 26 decibel horns that faced each direction, you know, one for transmit, one for receive. Excuse me. Then you also were fed by multiple 25 to 35 watt analog radios using up to 12 different polarizations.
Wow, okay. These things look pretty beastly.
They are beastly. I mean, these are some of these are hundreds of feet up in the air. But you could get 30 to 40 miles in a hop. You were really only limited by the curvature of the Earth and atmospheric conditions.
Okay.
Now, it was cool for its time. This idea that you could beam at near the speed of light, voice and data on this network that you owned, and get data from one place to another without copper. Very attractive. But eventually, AT&T ran into the law of physics, which we bring it up because this is a nice parallel to what's happening today with our wireless frequencies. You can only cram so much data, so many frequencies, before you start running out.
Right, and so we used to, well, TV was broadcast over the air. I guess that still happens, but then there's been a big fight for like Google and those other companies to get those frequencies. Yeah,
well, I mean, that whole digital changeover. Remember when they did that big thing of, well, we're going to stop the broadcast of analog signals and we're only going to do digital.
I remember my grandparents being very upset about it because the rabbit ears weren't going to work.
Exactly, and that's because you can cram more data into a digital channel, and they wanted to free up those wireless frequencies so they could auction them off.
Right.
And the FCC's been making a lot of money by auctioning off these frequencies, not for television or for radio, but for data, because it's all about wireless data.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing is, eventually we're going to run into the same problem that AT&T ran into. It doesn't matter how many frequencies we free up, there will never, ever be enough wireless spectrum for everything we want to run at the same time. And this is actually something we talk about a lot on one of my other shows, This Week in Enterprise Tech.
Yeah, I remember you guys talking about that. So what kind of speeds would you have gotten on those microwave towers? Like
it's like, like 56K.
56K?
No, I mean, you could do like ISDN speeds. I mean, it wasn't high speed. But remember, back in the 50s,
I mean, that was a lot.
56K was ridiculous.
Right,
I mean, holy, how are you getting 56K? That's, yeah, I mean, you look at the frequencies that they were using, and what they were really built for was for propagation. They were long waves, so you can get a long distance. You didn't really need to push a whole lot of information over those carrier waves. Not like today. Today, we demand high speeds, lots of bandwidth, low latency.
Gotta have my data.
Gotta have my data.
So now that those are obsolete, are they doing anything with the old towers?
Oddly enough, they are. Now, they basically shut down the network in, was it I think it was 99 or 98.
Okay.
Officially, but it really had become obsolete way before then. 30 years after the network started, we were already starting to put fiber into the ground, and you couldn't compete, and it was not economical to keep running the towers. Some of them were purchased by individuals who turned them into like vacation homes, because some of these are in beautiful areas. I mean, remember, where do you want to put a tower? You want to put a tower way up high, on something that has a view of a lot of things. So,
that's unobstructed. Yeah.
That's a beautiful view if you want a vacation home. Others have turned them into bomb shelters, because you saw the pictures. Some of those really
like concrete boxes.
But some of them are still in operation. They've re-equipped the towers with technology that can do like wireless ISP to a small region.
Because these are in remote locations.
And some of them are actually still using those microwave links to run as their backhaul, because they can't get fiber to where they are.
That's pretty cool.
Recycling old tech.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of recycling old tech. That's cool, huh?
Go figure.
Actually,
I'm wondering,
Padre, just so you were saying, it was a technological marvel in the 50s to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, remember back in the 90s, we had the same kind of technology with our Newtons. We could beam messages to each other.
With microwave.
Actually, I remember this. When you used a Newton, there used to be green flashes of light.
Yeah.
Really?
It was amazing.
You go beam. Yeah.
Beam?
It's beaming. It's beaming. It's
and it was microwave powered, right?
Oh,
so you
of course.
started to feel really warm when it was like
I got your
pointing at
message,
you?
but I'm all tingly. I don't.
It hurt the first time. It didn't hurt the second time. Weird.
Don't know what's going on.
So could we link up to the old microwave network and start our own like dark net or something?
You laugh, but I've got a know-how coming up in the near future. There are a couple of towers on my way to my family home in Las Vegas.
And check them out.
And I flew a quadcopter next to one once, and actually it's completely dead. So I'm wondering. I may have to.
Because nobody would set up a Stingray on an old microwave tower. Yeah. That technology is obsolete.
Stay tuned. DEF CON's coming up. No, let's move on. Okay, so now we've been promised. Oh wow, we've lost the audience.
I guess he doesn't like microwaves.
He really doesn't care. Okay, all right. We should offer him a Steam.
Moving on. We need to move on.
Let's move on. Come on. Time's running. We have been promising some Raspberry projects, Raspberry projects for a while.
Delicious.
And actually, with the release of the Raspberry Pi 2, people have been wanting to know, well, what does it do better? And one of the things that people have complained about the original Raspberry is that you could do things like, remember, is it Raspberry MC? RasBMC.
RasBMC, yeah.
Cool project. It was done way, way back towards the beginning of know-how. It worked.
Even just running the default Raspbian OS was you couldn't even really browse the internet on it.
It was kind of a painful experience. The video never looked quite right, just because you didn't have the power to really crank through the pixels, so everything always looked a little blocky. Don't get me wrong. For the price, it was great. It was nice to experiment with.
I loved playing with it.
I loved playing with it. But there was also another issue, and that is, very early on, the distro, so Raspbian, you could add on modules to make things functional, but it was kind of a pain in the butt to set it up.
Yeah, you definitely had to do your research before you started formatting your SD cards and things like that.
Right. Well, we decided that we wanted to see if there was an update. So we wanted to do another RasBMC update, but we couldn't. And Brian, a moment of sadness, because RasBMC is dead.
But from its ashes, did another rise like the phoenix?
Yeah. Actually, so they expanded the project. So the original one was RasBMC, and the idea was they wanted to make a media center for the Raspberry Pi. Well, the same development team said, wait a minute, why are we limiting it to the Raspberry Pi? This is actually good software. This is a good idea.
You could use it on multiple platforms.
We could use it on multiple platforms. So they created what's called the OSMC, the Open Source Media Center. Same team, same idea, same sort of interface. But this is now a distribution that will work on multiple devices, including the Raspberry Pi. And they wrote one specifically for the Raspberry Pi 2 so that it will take advantage of the 6 times extra horsepower.
Right. Yeah, because that's the big advantage of the new Pi is the faster processor.
It's a much faster processor, right. And a faster processor means that you have more horsepower for decoding streams, which means better quality.
Which means PlayStation and N64 emulators.
Yes, very much possible. But I wanted to find out if the installation would be just as painful as doing the original, or if maybe OSMC has figured out the bug. So Alex, push that magic button.
The audience is on their toes.
The materials needed for an OSMC Pi are minimal. You'll need a Raspberry Pi, an SD card, preferably 32 gigabytes or higher with Class 10 performance, a USB keyboard and mouse, and a power source. You'll also need a display and cable for HDMI output, and, if you want to go wireless, a USB wireless dongle. Setup starts by going to the OSMC website, which has versions of the installation package for Windows, OS X, and Linux. Choose your version, download, then kick off the package. You'll get a screen asking for your language and the type of Raspberry Pi that you're using. OSMC will make full use of the Pi 2's faster hardware, so make sure to select it if you've got a newer model. The next screen allows you to select which version of OSMC you want to install. I suggest using the release candidate, unless you'd like to help them with their debugging. You can also select a local build if you've got a custom image of OSMC that you've created. OSMC will allow you to install on an SD card, USB stick, NFS share, or an internal storage. I suggest using the SD card as it's the most flexible option. Finally, OSMC will give you the option of accessing your network via the onboard Ethernet connection or wirelessly via a USB dongle. I always suggest wired for best results. Confirm the destination for the install, accept the EULA, then let the setup download the package and write it to your storage device. Once the write is complete, install the SD card into your Pi, connect the keyboard, mouse, and HDMI display, as well as an Ethernet cable if you're connecting via wire. Then power up the Pi. OSMC will install itself with all your chosen parameters. Installation takes between 5 and 15 minutes depending on the speed of your Pi and SD card. After installation, the Pi will reboot, and you'll choose language and accept the EULA. That's it. OSMC is now successfully installed on your Raspberry Pi.
So ridiculously, wow. Oh, thanks, Bert.
Well, at least the audience doubled since the beginning of the show.
Wow, they're multiplying.
I know.
Like
right?
rabbits.
Don't feed them after midnight and don't get them wet.
Now, here's a couple of nice things. That installation is ridiculously easy.
That looks
compared to the
so
original.
much more simple than it used to be.
Choose your package, let it run. It actually copies everything over to the SD card. You put it in, it does its own install, and then it asks for the language for you to accept the EULA, and it's ready to go.
That has really been simplified rather than going into the console and doing like apt-get and finding all the packages you want.
Now, they do still have a lot of the functionality of the old RasBMC, which is you could design your own packages. You could add on to the functionality of the OSMC, which is nice. And that's actually why we're showing this to you now, because we want to build on this. One of the things that has been asked of us is if we could make like a twit box.
Right, where you just plug it in and it loads up like all our videos and stuff.
We could do that, but this is a much better platform to build on. In fact, Alex, if you go ahead and switch over to it, I've got it running right now. This is what the interface looks like. So if you've used RasBMC, this is going to be much the same way. This is not connected to a network right now, but it could be connected to a network. I've got it hooked up to this tchotchke that I got at CES not too long ago. It has a keyboard and a mouse built into it, which makes it for, it's a nice remote.
It looks handy.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I want to show you is I've got a USB drive here. This is a standard FAT32 formatted USB drive. I've got a bunch of know-how stuff on this. If I plug this in, it will recognize the drive. It will mount the drive. And then now go ahead and go back there, Alex. If I go up to files, it should, let me, where's that? It should be able to detect them. There we go, wait.
And that interface looks nice too.
Do your thing. There we go. It's detected the drive, and look at this quality. So let's go ahead and find. This is a know-how something episode. So just
we haven't gotten that far.
There we go. I mean, it's actually really good. The quality is spectacular. For what I remember from a Raspberry Pi. Remember, this is a super high compression codec. It requires a lot of power to decompress it. I'm not seeing a lot of blockiness. I'm not seeing a lot of shearing across the frame. There's motion.
No.
It's well done.
It is stretching you.
It is stretching me, but that's just because we're using a scaler underneath so that we could get the proper input on the. For some reason, I'm outputting like 1440 instead of 1920. I got to figure that out. I think that's just a setting in OSMC.
But yeah, as far as like stuttering and loading up the file and stuff like that, that was quicker than the original Pi.
Yeah, this is a really good platform to build on. So I'm gonna learn whatever it is that I have to learn to get the hooks on this.
Yeah.
And I will build a twit box out of OSMC.
I am more than willing to help you with that.
Yeah.
And it looks like you kind of have a little custom case or something.
Well, no, that's super
That's secret. That's just a little tease.
It's a little tease. It was something that we did here on Know-How. It's another project that we've been working on. Maybe a little bit of 3D printed magic. Yeah, I love it.
It looks nice.
It looks nice. I need to revise my design. It's not a great design.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with the Pi. There's a couple projects I already have in mind, along with the twit box.
Right. And something else, we're going to put all the links for this into the show notes. But if you've got even the original Raspberry Pi, OSMC will work on that. It won't be as slick. It won't be as fast because, of course, you don't have the horsepower. But try the installation. You're going to love it. The fact that you can put an SD card into your computer, run the installation, it copies all the packages over, and you're done. It's really how packages should be deployed on Raspberry Pi for consumers.
Yeah, that's pretty slick, especially if you're just somebody who wanted to play with the Pi and just get started right away. You didn't really want to have to dig into it too much. It's nice to be able to just pick it up and play with it right away, because I know a bunch of people were excited to play with them, and then once they had to really get over that first hurdle of just using it, they kind of petered out on it.
Well, you're like me. When I screwed up with my early Raspberry Pi projects, I didn't even try to figure out what I did wrong.
You just
wipe it and reinstall the packages.
Yeah, and I was determined to figure out what I was doing wrong, but I know I had a couple of friends who saw my NES project and they're like, oh, I want to do that, and then they hit the first wall of installing packages and stuff.
No, I'm done. Forget it. Yeah. So none of that. Now, folks, we know that this is a lot of information, but you know what? We've got a source of information on the internet that we want to talk to you about.
I think our audience member is checking it out right now.
Well, we can tell that he is looking at Lynda, because Lynda is the repository of knowledge on the internet. When you need to fill your knowledge hole, there's no better place to go than Lynda. Now, Brian, what is Lynda?
Lynda, well, that is a repository for a bunch of really well put together videos for knowledge. And I've been using it a lot for learning C++.
Yeah. Now, see, this is one of the things that we have both on Know-How and on Coding 101 and a couple of the other shows that we do here on the TWiT TV network, which is we can give people a taste. We can give people a sample of something, but then it's up to them to find a repository, a place that they can go to fill in all the gaps, because we'll never be able to give you as much knowledge as you need in half an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it might be. Lynda.com is a place where you can go, where you can find classes on business, on skills, on hobbies, everything from how do you take pictures to how do you program. That's what Lynda.com is for. Now, it is for problem solvers. If you consider yourself a problem solver, consider Lynda. It's for the curious, for the people who want to make things happen. Maybe you want to build an app. Maybe you want to learn programming so you can create a module for OSMC. Maybe you want to take better photos, master Excel, or redesign your website. Well, Lynda.com has everything you need to feed your curious mind. Some of the courses that I recommend, if you're curious about life and about the world and how the world works, are Up and Running with Java, Design Patterns in PHP, and HTML Essential Training. They also have 3 different courses on building a note-taking app, an Android version, an iOS version, and a Windows Phone version. Each course will teach you how to create a complete mobile note-taking app from start to finish. And with ours, we'll have created a working app and learned the basics of developing for whichever platform you choose. We use Lynda here, not just for general knowledge, but specifically for this crossover, this move over that we've had from platforms. We moved from Final Cut on the Mac to Premiere Pro on the Windows PC because we've got faster computers now. Well, our editors are great and they're really good and they know what they're doing, but sometimes they need just that little bit of extra, that tool that didn't work properly.
He's talking about me, because when we switched over from Final Cut, I knew how to use Premiere, but there was all the hotkeys and a few little details that I was unfamiliar with, and Lynda helped fill those gaps.
They filled the gaps, and not only that, but Lynda has something that they do, which I love, which are transcriptions of all their videos.
My two favorite things, transcriptions and the go back 10 seconds button.
Exactly. What? Hold on. Back
exactly.
Up. Exactly. And the transcriptions specifically because you can look for a particular question that you have, for a particular solution that you need, and it will tell you where you can find it in the videos, in the classes. That's just invaluable. If you don't have that in your service, well, you're just not Lynda. Now, here's what we want you to do. We want you to get a Lynda.com membership. We want you to get unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics. We want you to get it all for a flat rate. Whether you're looking to become an expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, we want you to visit lynda.com/knowhow and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com/knowhow. And we thank Lynda for their support of Know-How. Brian, I'm afraid we have to do it.
What's that?
We're going to have to flip over the board because Tony's getting bored here. And we're going to go from this wonderful, fluffy know-how thing to, could you get that? I'm going to get that other side. To some serious math. Now, if only there were a way that we could warn our audience that there were incoming quadcopter segments. That would be very, very helpful.
Some sort of disclaimer.
A disclaimer that quads are incoming.
Other than the quad,
there
the quad
we go.
sitting on the table here.
Go. Okay, so
be forewarned.
This is
the audience is still here. I think they're waiting for the quadcopters.
I think they want this. Wow, go figure. People I think actually want quadcopters. That's why we've been doing them.
That's right.
Go
stick around.
Stick around. Now we're talking about something that's very unglamorous. People hate this because it gets heavy on math. But it's very important if you do design your own quadcopters, because it's not just buying a kit, putting it together. There's actually some foreknowledge that you need to put into the project.
Padre, are you saying you can do cool stuff with math, but then I have to learn? Yeah,
we're talking about tuning. Now, anyone, and actually everyone who has crashed in our Google Plus group,
quite a few,
will know this. I'm now going to give you the secrets to the kingdom. If you want to know how to get better videos, if you want your quadcopter not to shake so much, if you want it not to wobble as it's coming down, listen, because this is it. Now, I'm going to start with some heavy stuff, but then we're going to get into the practicals. Here's the heavy stuff. Your quadcopter is math.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Math. All right.
Why?
But specifically, this is math. This is the flight controller. Now, this thing is the brains. Remember, this controls the electronic speed controllers, which then drive the motors at different RPMs in order to make this thing level out.
Right. There's sensors in it that help detect.
Accelerometers, there's a gyro, all that other fun stuff.
And that's all math.
Yeah. It's all math because this is what we call an open loop controller.
And why do you call it that?
Because it just runs and runs and runs. This is a process that never stops.
Right, because it's always taking in data and then putting out
exactly.
results.
It takes in data and then it gives that output. That's perfect. That's exactly what this does. So this is taking in the data from the sensors and then it has to give output. But an open loop controller has to have a goal. There has to be something that it does. So for example, the controller in your car for your pedal, its goal is to match the speed of the engine with where the position of that pedal is.
Makes sense.
Okay, that's another example of an open loop controller.
Okay.
This one has this as a goal, flat. This controller wants this quadcopter to be as flat as possible. So it's looking at the accelerometers, it's looking at the gyro, and it knows what perfect is. Perfect is flat, and then it knows that as it does this, it induces what's called an error. And all the error means is how far away am I from my goal?
Right, and then it wants to get back to the goal.
Right, and that's the output. So it takes the error, turns it into an output that it will generate that will hopefully correct the error.
Okay.
Okay. Now, any flight controller is going to have what we call PID.
PID.
PID, which stands for proportional gain, integral, and derivative.
Okay.
Okay, and it sounds very mathy.
Right. What are we trying to describe with that?
Because it is math.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Proportional. It addresses the craft's deviation from the norm.
Okay.
All right. So, for example, I've my really crudely drawn waves here. If this is the norm, as my craft goes out, as it creates more errors, the P is going to want to force it back towards the norm, towards the center line, right?
Yes.
But what will happen is if you're just flying with P, you're going to end up with this. You get this oscillation because the craft is going to overcorrect constantly. It's going to go from here to, well, I better give it hard over so I get back to level. Then it's going to go there. Then it's I better give it, So you end up with this. Now, if you've ever flown your quadcopter and it's doing this as it comes up, you get a fast oscillation.
Yeah.
That's because your P settings are way too high. Essentially, your quadcopter's controller is overcompensating continuously. The P gain is so high that it's always trying to fix the small errors.
It's fighting itself, basically.
It's fighting itself, right?
Okay.
Right. So if you have a higher P setting, it is more reactive to angular change. So high P means that when I do this, the craft can snap it back more quickly. Low P means that when I do this, the craft is kind of lazily gonna.
It slows down the reaction time, I guess.
A little bit, but that's the takeaway. Now, there's a second setting called I, the integral. Integral is, well, it's kind of funny. So let's take that same oscillation, right? So my P is just looking at where the error is, and it's trying to correct the error, right?
Right.
The integral is actually looking at the error over time. So then that's why it's called integral. It's actually the area under the curve. Now, the nice thing about the integral is that it will actually fight the P. So the P wants to snap it back immediately, right?
Yes.
Where the integral will look at the error over time, and it's basically trying to level it out. I mean, this is not the math description, because again, I don't want to melt faces.
Yeah.
But that's what I let you do. I let you sort of calm down the P. So rather than over snapping, you can have the I say, okay, I understand that you want to get back to this point, but because I'm looking at the error over time, I'm gonna balance out your corrections so you don't snap back and forth so much.
Okay, because as my brain is trying to wrap my head around all this, I'm thinking back to our lunchbox project when we were talking about suspensions.
Yes.
This seems almost like an air suspension where you had the shock that would, dampen, and then you had the dampener, and they were like fighting each other to try and keep the lunchbox level.
And so you've got those algorithms. There's two different algorithms that you can play with. When you're dealing with I, a higher setting of I will want to spread out the corrections over time.
I see.
So if you've got a really high I setting, it will look at what P wants to do, and it will kind of lazily bring it back.
Okay.
Now, this is cool. If you've got a craft that tends to wobble as it descends.
Well, is that because of like the air wash?
It is the air wash. But you can fix that by increasing the I, because what that air wash is doing is it's forcing P to do a bunch of snap.
Right.
And increasing the I will decrease the oscillation.
Ah, okay.
Okay? Right? There's one more called derivative.
Right.
Which actually some in the quadcopter community will call dampening, because that's basically what it does. It's like a shock absorber. It keeps you from maxing out the limit either way. The KK, which we're using on these boards, doesn't give you control over derivative. In fact, a lot don't. You could do everything with just P and I, which is actually what we do on the KK.
Okay. And so now that we know what these do, how do you dial them in?
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about this process, because this is what you actually want to hear. All that stuff, that math, meh, forget it. What you actually want to hear is, how do I use that to make my quadcopter not so squirrely?
Right.
All right. Here's what you're going to do. Take the I setting and turn it all the way to 0.
Okay.
Okay, so in the KK, there's the pi settings, PI.
Yeah.
And use it to turn the I all the way to 0, because you want to set the P before there's any I.
Okay.
Okay. Now you're going to turn the P up to about 30. Start it with 30.
So for the limit with P, you can probably 0, but then what's like the max you can set?
Like 255.
250. Okay, so 30 is like a good baseline then.
Actually, some flight controllers are set to like 255 by default. And if your quadcopter, the first time you fly it, starts doing this, check your default, because it's probably at like 200, 255.
Okay.
But start with 30, fly it. Just a little bit, just fly it up. If it's stable, bump it up by 10.
Okay.
30 to 40. Keep doing that until you start to see fast oscillation. When you start to see fast oscillation, take it back down to the last value you had.
And you'll see oscillation with no input from your remote, right?
Because remember, that's just the quadcopter overcorrecting.
Okay.
Once you hit that part where the quadcopter is starting to do this, bring the P back down until it's no longer doing that. So now you've got that balance. That gives you your ideal P.
Okay.
Now let's do I. I is the same way. Bring it up, from 0, bring it up to 10, put it up in the air, and then let it come down. If it's wobbling as it comes down, increase the I.
Okay.
And keep doing that until the wobble, it's not going to completely disappear, but when the wobble is noticeably less, that's your I setting.
Okay.
Okay.
And probably you should really make sure it's balanced before you do these tests.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We haven't gone over that because that's actually a mod we're going to do for the Alien X. We did go over balancing propellers,
right?
Which is good, because you don't want to have a bunch of vibration, because vibration will actually affect the controller as well.
And we've talked about moving the battery along the chassis to get an ideal weight distribution.
Yeah, but we still need to balance the motors, because we have not balanced the motors, and motors can be unbalanced.
Right.
And we still have a hard mount of our flight controller to the frame, which honestly isn't ideal, because what's going to happen is the vibrations from the quadcopter are going to translate into the controller, and that will throw off your settings.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So what is the ideal scenario for?
We're actually building a mount that people can build for themselves that it's really good at isolating the controller, and at the same time it gives it crash protection.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I've seen people who they'll double-side tape their controllers to the frame, which is great until you crash, and then the controller just
flies
away.
It disappears.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that's how you tune it. You want to tune your quadcopter, because the better you tune it, the better it's going to fly. Now, you always hear people saying, what are your PI settings, or what are your PID? Can you share your PID with me?
Right.
You can use that as a starting point, but you got to remember, your PID settings are going to change depending on how you fly it, what your acceptable tolerance for wobble,
how you mod it,
what you're doing with it. Like, for example, if I'm flying a camera, I'm going to use a much lower P setting than I would if I'm going acro, because I want smooth flight. I want sluggish moves. I don't want anything snap. Right.
But if you're going to be acrobatic,
get it back up there, right? And also, it's going to depend on how you build it, because everything from where you place your controllers to how you mount your motors to whether or not things are balanced, that's going to throw off those settings.
Different. Yeah.
Could be different, right? So that's why I'm not saying, okay, set this for 35 and 62. I can't do that, because my settings will probably not work for you.
It really is like the suspension of the quadcopter, because there's so many times I've gone on forums and people are like, tell me what your suspension's set at, and it's like, well, it depends on your weight, it depends on how you ride, it depends on like what mods you've done.
Yeah.
So
there you
but
go,
it's like a digital suspension, and based on weight, but that's cool.
That's going to conclude our Alien X build. We've got plenty of mods coming for both the 250 and the Alien X, and we were talking about this last night. We're actually going to start doing full home-built quads. So we're going to start building our own frames. We're going to start building our own components.
Yeah, just out of whatever we can scavenge in the basement.
We're going to find stuff in Leo's office.
Probably, yeah, Leo's office, Burke stuff. Yeah,
definitely Burke stuff. But
maybe audience things.
Never mind.
Man, they don't seem that excited
He's really
about
not
the
impressed
proposition.
with it. And Burke turned into a raccoon.
Well, he disappeared.
Strange stuff. But before we send you away, I just wanted to give you a little taste of what you can do with your 450 once you get your tuning right. Hey, Alex.
He hit it quick. Yeah. Say it. Hit
Push
the magic button.
Now, 8-Bit Steve is saying, well, that beat shot was a DJI, right? No,
Nope.
none of all of that was done with the 450, with the Alien X that we just built. The difference is on that beat shot, that really smooth beat shot that I did.
Gimbal.
I actually did mount a gimbal on the bottom of it. We've got a mod where we're going to show people how to put the gimbal forward so that you don't get those legs, or the props, which will be nice. Now, you'll notice that if you watch that again, you'll notice that there's different degrees of shaking that's going on.
Right.
It's because I'm in the process of tuning it.
Okay.
Now, people also asked, is it going to change depending on whether or not you have a camera mounted on it?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything you do to your quadcopter that takes it out of the trim that it currently is going to require you to retune it. So just consider that.
And Alex doesn't even have a quadcopter, but he was saying he has a PI setting.
Oh, Alex, what's your PI setting?
This is my PI setting.
Should have known that.
I had to see it.
No, you really didn't.
Oh, well, maybe I'll go watch Magnum PI after this.
I think we're done, right? We're just.
That's the end of the show.
Yeah. No, okay, no, we've got more. We've got more. Now, folks, we're going to put aside that build for just a bit, and we're going to get to your questions. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank the second sponsor of this episode of Know How.
It's time to get smart, Padre.
Get smart. You get smart. In fact, don't just you get smart. Let your house get smart. I've told this story a couple of times, but it's worth retelling. At CES this year, that's actually, it's no longer the Consumer Electronics Show. It's just CES.
It doesn't stand for anything.
Doesn't stand for anything. At International CES, the big story, the one that people were really drawn to, was the emergence of the smart house, the smart home. We've been promised this forever, the idea that your home could automate itself so it could do those things that you need it to do on a regular basis.
Walk through the door, have it set the temperature that you like, turn on the lights, things like that.
Unfortunately, that's not possible.
Or is it?
Or is it? No, it is possible with this. This is the Smart Things Hub. Now, your smart home is going to start with this. Yeah, Brian, if you'd be my Vanna White.
Oh, of course.
The idea is Smart Things works with not just their modules. They've got power modules, light modules, entry sensor modules, water modules, but it will also work with the tech that you already have. Your Sonos systems, your drop cams, your Nest thermometer. That's right, it's designed to be the hub, the smart hub of your smart home. Now, Smart Things makes it easier than ever to turn your home into a smart home. Most of you, I'd say, because, our know-how audience is smart, you've dabbled with home automation in the past, so you know that it can be expensive and proprietary. Well, not so if you've got Smart Things, not if you've got this smart hub. This changes everything. Smart Things let you control your home, both the Smart Things devices as well as any other automation you may have already through one single pane of glass on your mobile device, your iOS, Android, or Windows phone. And because it's an open platform, it will work with all those devices you already have in your home, which, again, that just makes it smarter. Now, here's my personal favorite, Brian. I like this. That's the fob. That's the entry sensor. I keep that on my person, and when I enter my home, my smart home knows that it's me. So it will open the doors, it will turn off the alarm, it will set the thermostat the way I want it, it will turn on my music, turn on my lights. It's basically a way to build your logic into your home rather than you having to change the way you live to how an automation product works. Now, here are some of the things that you can do. Home automation, security, energy saving, water detection. You've got water in the basement. Well, put a water sensor down there and it will automatically turn on a pump when it starts to detect that moisture is getting too high. These are the kinds of things that make your home smart. These are the kind of things you get with Smart Things. Now, here's what we want you to do. We want you to try Smart Things. They require no monthly fees, and their kits start at just $189. Smart Things is an affordable way to create your smart home. And just for our Twit audience, Smart Things is offering you a chance to save even more. That's right, get 10% off any home security project or solution kit, and you get free shipping in the United States when you go to smartthings.com/twit. That's smartthings.com/twit, and use the offer code TWIT. Once again, that's smartthings.com/twit, and use the offer code TWIT. And we thank Smart Things for their support of know-how.
Nice thing about that, too, the more modifications you do, you don't have to change your PI settings. Unless it's Magnum PI settings. Da-dun-da-dun. We might just edit that out. The audience does not...
The audience is not impressed, Brian.
It did not test well. The Magnum PI did not test well with the audience.
Oh, my gosh.
That's why it got canceled.
That show has now been canceled. Now, folks, we do like to listen to our audience. We do like to hear your questions and give you some feedback on what you've been doing. So we thought we should bring out a couple here just for giggles.
Yes.
Brian, you want to take it away?
Yes, this comes from our much more active G+ community, unlike our live audience here. But Joel J asks for an eBook reader that's not a Kindle. Does anyone know of a device that is simpler than a Kindle eBook reader, does not use internet, and can display PDFs off an external standard /micro SD card /internal storage? Want to use this for an updated /custom prayer books in church, so no distractions.
I get this.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be for church. It could be for anything that you want a specialized purpose.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've noticed, because I work with schools a lot, is that these multi-purpose devices that we've been giving kids, they tend to be distractions.
Go figure.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, when they're in the classroom with an iPad, they're not actually looking at the lesson most of the time. That's
or watching the show that you're
watching
doing.
the show. There are a couple of options. I understand what he wants to do.
Yeah.
He likes this idea of external storage because he wants to be able to update whatever the material is that people are supposed to be watching on, and then put it into the device. So that's automatically going to rule out any device that doesn't have an SD card. If you don't have an SD card, we don't want to do updates on each one individually.
Right. Okay.
Now, the cheapest one that I could find, and this is one that I actually had around my office, was this Pan Digital 8-inch tablet. It's an Android tablet. You can find these for about $16 to $20.
Whoa, nice.
Which is not bad. This one actually I broke.
Oh.
So it's not good.
So we can't really demonstrate with it.
We can't demo, but what it does have is this. There's an SD card slot on the side, so that if you wanted to put like all your lessons or your missile onto chips, and then you just put these in, and you can lock it down, so that's the only thing that they can look at. So they turn it on, and it's that. This is a nice solution because it's cheap. Here would be the downside for me. Anytime you've got a screen like this, it's going to take up a lot more battery. You are going to have to charge this like every time you hand them out.
Right.
Right. That's kind of a pain. Versus something that has e-ink. Now, e-ink is not as vibrant. It doesn't have all the functions of something like a Pan Digital.
The battery lasts forever.
Battery will last forever. Now, you didn't want a Kindle, and even like the Nook, the Barnes & Noble's Nook, if you get an old version, maybe, but the new version is probably not.
What about the Kobos?
Exactly. We actually took a look at a Kobo on Before You Buy, and it's a decent e-ink tablet. Now, it is a bit more expensive. You're going to be talking about $50 to $60 for a new one. But these do have an SD card. These are e-ink, which means they're going to last forever on a charge. It's not as easy to lock down as Android. Android has many utilities that you can use to make sure they're only looking at what they should look at.
Right.
But, I mean, if you disable the wireless and if you only give them that data on the card, then there's really nothing else they can do with it.
Right. And, I mean, with an e-ink display, you're not going to be watching videos or things like that on it.
It cuts down on the distractions. And it also means that I know this doesn't mean much to you, but as a person who's done teaching, I don't like looking into a darkened room and seeing people's faces lit up. It's annoying. It's not.
As someone who has been taught, I don't care.
You don't get that with an ebook. And also, it's actually, I do prefer to do extended reading on e-ink rather than the screen.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I played with any e-ink displays, but usually when you think e-ink, you think Kindle.
Yes.
Because they're really easy to get your hands on.
They basically own the market. I mean, remember, what, 5, 6 years ago, there were dozens of ebook readers, and all the big players had them, and then it dried up because Kindle took over.
That's what Amazon does.
There you go. All right, so next we've got, I got NAT'ed.
So this comes from Jose Lozada? I'm going to just say that. My SP changed my dumb cable modem for a modem/router combo unit. I plugged it into my fancy pants router, a Buffalo AirStation Extreme AC 1750.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah, more words means better. And it didn't make any changes because, lazy. It's working fine, but now my NAT in games has gone from open to moderate. Boo. Should I have disabled something on the modem or router instead of being lazy and just plugging it in without changing anything? Maybe. I mean, obviously, the outcome has changed. So
now, this is exactly what we talked about. Was it last show or 2 shows ago? I think it might have been 2 shows ago. This is natting a NAT. This is what you're going to get. You've put your firewall behind a firewall, and that's why your NAT settings have gone from open to moderate. Jose, thank you for asking this, because we're getting into the practicals. This is no longer theoretical, and this is something that we should talk about, because this is very common with most ISPs, Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, Cox, Time Warner.
All those jerks.
All those jerks. Well, I don't want to call them jerks. I mean, they are providing a service, but they're in a very jerky way.
Yeah. All right, fine. We'll rant about that on some other time.
We'll rant about it later. But what they want is they want to sell you a combo unit. So they want to sell you the modem, the interface with the network, plus a router.
Right.
And they like doing that because it gives them more control over the network. They don't want to just be a place that hands off service to you. They kind of want to be able to control what you do with it. Now, you can attribute a lot of notorious things to that, but don't. That's just network.
We're not going to get into that.
We're not going to get into that. Now, here's the good side. The good side is many of the, not all, but many of these services have a way to turn off the smart features of the combo router/modem. So I know Comcast will do this with difficulty. Cox will do it with a lot of difficulty. AT&T, they loosened up. They actually have a setting where you can like plug in your router to port 1 of the combo and then set something in the UI, and it basically turns that combo into a dumb device. It turns it back into a modem.
Back into okay.
Right.
Well,
Comcast,
it should be.
depending on who you talk to, sometimes it's not locked down, sometimes it is. Most of the time it is.
Yeah.
Cox, 50-50, I found.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple of good questions that go along with this. The first one is, people were asking in that particular question, that thread, well, should I just buy my own? Because they don't want to sell me a dumb modem anymore. Should I just buy a modem that will work with their network? I used to say yes, because I like the idea of owning it. Especially,
I bought my own modem.
Right?
I bought one from Costco. It was like $80, but that was like 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Well, I mean, for them, if you're looking at it in terms of money, sometimes it makes sense, because I mean, if you're looking like an $8 rental fee, in 10 months, you've paid it off.
Right.
Right? Here's the problem with buying your own. If you buy your own, I guarantee you, when you call for service because something has broken, they're going to say, oh, it must be your modem, sir.
That's exactly what happened to me.
And it's not ours, so if you would like to rent one from us,
right,
we can make sure it works.
This is the situation that happened to me. My internet, I came home, my internet wasn't working. Unplugged modem, plugged modem back in, didn't work. Finally got desperate enough that I called, which is always like the last resort for me.
Right.
I never want to be on the phone with Comcast. So I call them, I tell them my issue, and they're like, oh, are you running a custom router? Did you buy your own router? I'm like, yeah, what does that have to do with anything? They're like, oh, well, you know, we've moved on from that, and you really should probably we can send you one. You know what? I'm gonna send you a new one. I'm like, no, don't send me anything. I just want this to work. And so they're like, all right, well, you know, after like, you know, this is a 15-minute conversation telling them I don't want them to send me something. They're like, all right, well, we'll reboot like your signal or something. I have no idea what they did, but they did it, and like I unplugged the modem a few times and finally got it to work. But it was a battle.
Isn't it strange? No, sir, it's really broken.
And then it worked.
It is broken. No, seriously. Okay, fine.
Right.
You didn't fall for it.
Exactly. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So if you rent, kind of be ready for that. I mean, I don't blame them. That's what they do. I mean, they're not.
And then what it's ended up happening is I've moved to a new place. I have my custom modem. Haven't hooked it up because then you have to call Comcast and tell them the serial number on it. And
in a perfect world, I would always rent. It's not a perfect world right now, and because they know you can't go anywhere else. What are you going to do? You're going to switch to the other high-speed broadband provider? No, it's them.
Right.
Which that's a different show.
Okay.
But right now, rent or buy, I lean towards rent.
I'm sorry. Well, then test out your options. See if you can get into that modem/router and disable it, and then use your nicer router.
Right.
If you can't, try calling them, and then maybe last resort buy your own modem. But
well, Web4265 is asking in the chat room. Well, then why do they have a list of approved modems? Because they have to.
Right.
They're actually required by law.
Yeah.
If they didn't, they would get in trouble with the FCC and the FTC. So they have to at least appear. That's why they can't tell you, oh no, we won't do that because it's not ours. They actually have to provide service, but there's nothing in the law that says they can't degrade the service to your modem if it's not one of theirs.
Right. Well, it's hard to prove anything like that.
It's very hard to prove that. It's so hard to prove that. Because again, they can always say, no, everything on our side's fine.
Right.
It must be your modem. You bought a bad one, sir.
So back to the question. They, what is our recommendation? We've gone on a tangent, I guess.
So what we have to do is he has to make sure that he has opened up the NAT on that router/modem combo. And again, you didn't tell me what provider you've got, so I can't tell you the exact process that you're going to have to go. If you're lucky, there will be a setting in the UI that you can actually access, and they haven't locked you out of the UI.
Right.
That will allow you to turn the modem to bridge mode.
Right.
Once it's in bridge mode, you're good. You're golden.
Because you have a nice router that you can dial in if you need to.
Exactly. If you can't do that, then you're probably going to have to call, because most of them don't. I mean, Comcast at one point did have an online form that you could set up so that you could then access your interface.
Yeah.
But at least in DC, you had to call them to get the password. Yeah, I know.
I know. I felt really bad for one of my friends. He moved to a new apartment, set up Comcast, couldn't figure out how to get into the modem, and they made it really complicated.
Right? It's just it's like it doesn't have to be like
it's
this.
Like I really had to work to get into the modem to change the settings, because I mean the default password and the default wireless name is like Echo 125678821, and the password is, and he pulled out this binder and he's like, here's the password, and it was just this huge long string. I was like, it doesn't have to be like this.
Well, there's another wrinkle here, and the wrinkle is that most of these companies, AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, Time Warner, when you get a tech coming to your house, the vast majority of the time it's a contractor. It's not someone who actually works for the company. They contract with the company.
Yeah.
And I've had times where like the contractor has changed the default username and password for security, but I'm like, but then now I don't have it. and the Comcast tell me what it is.
Because the contractor's gone now.
He's gone now. They don't know who he was. Yeah. So I think Jose, thank you. This has been very cathartic. This is like therapy, really.
Yeah, we need to get it out.
Therapy.
We need to talk about it. Yeah. I feel better about it. Still a little rage on the inside, but I feel better.
Okay, wait. Cleansing breath.
Man.
Okay.
All right, well, before Alex starts yelling
Before he starts yelling, let's do this one last parting shot because we completely lost our audience. Alex, can you bring up this website? Now, there are a lot of people who have asked me about, well, where can I fly drones, right? And there's actually this map. We're going to put the link into the show notes. This will show you what all of the legally invalid places to fly drones are. So like you see these circles. Invalid, sorry.
Okay.
These are the airports. You can't fly 50 miles from an airport. But Alex, go down to like the San Francisco area. Now, this is the fun part. You'll notice that anything that's a state or federal park is also grayed out.
I should have thought of that before.
Like the beaches, the beaches where I actually flew that. I think that's actually redded out, but I don't know. But I can't confirm that.
It looks like Mount Tam might be on that list too.
Yeah,
and I definitely.
And Alcatraz. You can't fly in Alcatraz, right? Because again, it's a.
What about the Golden Gate Bridge area?
Oh yeah, look at the Golden Gate Bridge. That whole area is off limits. You cannot fly anywhere near a bridge.
There certainly weren't a group of segways rolling around down there. Okay. But okay, when you first when we were looking at this map, I was like, oh God, please don't let these be the only valid areas that you can fly.
You have to, but look at that. There's whole huge swaths of the country that are no-fly zones.
Is that all? Did that all happen when the guy flew a drone into one of the geysers at
That's correct.
Yellowstone?
Yeah. So they made the policy of no parks. And these, I mean, unfortunately, this is what kills it. The parks are some of the most beautiful places to fly.
Right.
And if you wanted to take video, those are the beautiful spots. But just it's kind of a bummer.
Well, you know, we'll find some more of those microwave tower places.
And look at that. See that big golden circle there?
I think I know what that is.
Yeah. Don't fly anywhere near DC. And you know what might be right in the middle of that circle?
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea.
Yeah. So folks, if you have any questions, if you're in doubt, check this map. Again, the link will be in our show notes. And actually, this is a good thing to have as a reference. If you ever got questioned, you can say, well, I've got a map here. I'm in an area that's not forbidden.
Yeah.
So unless there's some local ordinance that I don't know about, which you now have to tell me about, I'm not forbidden from flying here.
Okay.
There you go.
Be responsible drone flyers.
Please do. Now, folks, we know that this was a lot of information, everything from PID tuning to OSMC to your feedback. So we want to give you a little something. We want to give you show notes. And Brian, where do they get those?
They can go to twit.tv/KH, and so that's where our show notes live, along with past episodes. You know, we do a lot of overarching projects, like a lot of these quadcopter projects, so you'll want to go back and watch anything that you might have missed. So I guess we've been posting links to some of the parts to buy these projects, and they kind of get eaten up quick. I didn't realize that many people, like thousands, tens of thousands of people are building our projects right now. So, so just keep searching. So keep searching, check our show notes, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. But if you can't find those parts or something is missing that we forgot, go to the G+ community and ask some questions there. Yeah. And don't forget to go to the G+ community anyways, because it's over 8,300 members strong. It's incredibly active. It's a fun place to go if you're a DIYer, if you're a maker. You get to see other people's projects. You get to ask questions. And if you've got a cool project,
put it in there.
Yeah.
We'll try to put it on the show.
Set aside like an hour, because I was like, oh, I'll pop in there, check it out for 15 minutes. I scrolled through like 2 months of
It's so much
like,
fun.
posts.
It's like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try that. We have taken probably half of the segments that we do here on Know How straight out of that group. So I mean, if you're tired of quadcopters, that's fine. Ask for something else.
That's the beauty of the Twit Studio Internet TV, is that we interact with our audience, even if they are really quiet and don't say anything the whole episode.
Look at that. That's, man, I don't know what's wrong with that, man. Okay, don't forget that if you don't like Google+, you could also find us on the Twitters. You can find me at twitter.com/PadreSJ. That's at PadreSJ.
And I am at cranky_hippo.
And you can also find our TD if you want to grumble about that.
If you want to grumple.
If you want to grumble about Alex, you can find him at ANELF3. That's at ANELF3. And
Alex Grumple.
Alex Grumple. Thank you very much. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Balliser.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And now that you know how,
go do it.
woo!
Look, another audience member.
Oh,